Welcome to About the Albums. This time I'm talking about another compilation. This one is called Assorted Sam. As you can see, I'm still kind of figuring out the whole setup and whatnot. Because I'm holding the microphone this time, and I'm further away from the camera, and the light is blue. I don't know how I want to do this yet. Suggestions might help, but who knows. By the time I get them, they might all be done. Anyways, Assorted Sam is this compilation of stuff from around 2012 to 2014-ish, as far as I can tell from all the files it came from. Essentially, these came from albums and projects that were mostly things I didn't think needed to exist anymore, but some of these songs where I sang on them, I felt like because I was singing in them, they still should exist. So I figured I'll put all of these onto one thing if they'll fit, and they do. And we've got this. And really the only things that ended up not making the cut at all were things that were like, extra takes I had on some songs. I made like alternate versions where I had like a few versions I was trying to pick from, and I couldn't quite decide which one I liked for the singing and sound of the music and everything. And so I eventually have just made the call of the ones I picked as the main ones and not the alternate versions are generally the ones I've kept. So what we've got here are all of the other surviving things that either were on albums that were too small to really keep together, or were on things that as a whole weren't worth keeping the entirety of those individual things. And hopefully they'll find a decent little home here, as some of the earlier and I guess some later, depending on when they came out, just these things I did that at the time I wasn't too proud of, that didn't really get put in the best context, and hopefully are in a more interesting context and package here on Assorted Sam. So, hopefully that's cool.
Big boots to fill, gun down in the west. Need pistol skill, gun down in the west.
Gunned Down in the West is actually the title track from the album I did, Gunned Down in the West. And the thing with that is, basically, the whole album was kind of like a Western concept album of sorts. I guess it wasn't like a full, like the idea of the album was just a bunch of Western sounding songs, inspired by watching like, Westerns, like movies, right? And so Gunned Down in the West is just kind of like a tale of a guy. I mean, it says it in the song when you listen to it, but guy who comes into this town that's like down on its luck, right? This town like needs help. They need like a sheriff to take care of these bad guys, and so they just make him a sheriff right away, and he has to try and fight off all these outlaws. So it's, I don't know, it's just basically just that. And the whole album was just, like partly was new songs, and also some of them were older songs that fit the Western style of it. So there were some new songs, some old songs, and I figured, I'll just take the songs that were unique to the album and just put those. The only one that I think is no longer here, I mean, there's a couple maybe. They're like instrumental ones that didn't end up going anywhere after this because of clearing things out, but in general, the important stuff still exists, and those songs still exist, just not out there in the public anymore because nobody cared. This one's still pretty neat though. I kind of like it. I don't like that my sometimes my stuff ends up in different ears, and I didn't intend for it to do that. Like, I think the singing is more like in the left ear, and like a lot of the music stuff's more in like the right ear for some reason, and I don't know why that happened that way, other than like where I was facing with that camera, and it's like the microphone on that old camera was pretty good, but I didn't really want it to be like a stereo effect was all. So Gunned Down in the West.
Everybody do the claymation, everybody do the claymation, everybody do the claymation, everybody do the claymation.
Do the Claymation came off of the album Drug Trip, and that album was kind of just, I came up with it mostly because I had the song, I think it was just called Sam's Birthday or something like that. I think it was Sam's birthday was all I titled it, because I made that for background music for this video I made for my birthday. I don't remember exactly even what I was doing in that video. I think maybe I was like, I might have been like making food or something. It was weird. I just wanted to put up something on my birthday and didn't know what to do, so I just threw a thing up. But what I then realized was it sounded kind of trippy for some of like the stuff in it. And I was like, oh. And so I made a few other songs. There weren't too many songs because that song is really long. I don't think that ended up making it anywhere else now, but the other songs are just the idea of like making all of them sound kind of trippy, like I was on a drug trip. And do the claymation, I don't know, I also vaguely envisioned like a crazy, bizarre claymation music video, which obviously I can't do because I don't have clay or mation, so I can't really do that. But the concept was there, the idea was there, and hopefully that was conveyed in the way the song feels. Also, all the lyrics just had to rhyme with claymation.
Come on, all you voices, big or small, we are one through this weather.
All Ye Voices was a song off of The Distancer. I don't know why I decided, I just thought it looked neat to characterize that as having it all lowercase for The Distancer. And all the idea for that whole album was to use not this, but the microphone I had, with my effects pedal, and have it be just me singing with effects on it, a cappella style, and to see what I could kind of do. And there weren't too many songs on there, and I'm pretty sure all of those made it onto here. That's how short that album was. So most of the songs weren't that long because I can't do a whole lot of crazy things with my voice, even with effects on it. So All You Voices is just really kind of creepy. The idea of like everyone kind of like almost like singing like alone, that we should be singing together kind of thing, and it's just kind of like, it just reminds me of like some lonely crazy dude in like a cave or something. It's interesting. So the vibe is kind of creepy. Well, there could have been a bit more on the effect that was there. It didn't do quite what I was envisioning it was doing to my voice at the time. It still sounds cool. And I think it gets my idea across a little bit. So that's, I thought it was kind of neat.
Air Force Chimps. Air Force Chimps.
It's at this juncture I should maybe apologize, because my stomach has started making weird noises, but it's the only time I really had to record right now, to make sure other things aren't interfering with it. So if you hear those, oops. I mean, it's a small miracle I even got to, do this at all, because my goddamn light kept falling over. So now it hasn't fallen over yet, but if the lighting drastically changes in the middle of this one, that maybe fell. But enough about the albums. You want to hear about this song, which is Air Force Chimps, which doesn't have a whole lot to it. I recorded the musical part first, and then I think I had it ready to go and something happened, and I think it accidentally got deleted off my camera or something. So what I had to do, or I didn't have to do, but what I ended up doing or it got deleted off my keyboard, I think was what happened. When the power went out, it went out of the memory of it. So when I hit record, I just recorded me singing with the audio playing on the computer. I don't know if I layered it with the original one or not. So it came out kind of weird audio-wise. You might be able to tell some of that. And I threw it onto the album Other Stuff because I didn't think it didn't sound that great. There was only that one line to it. And Other Stuff was just a compilation of things I had put out that I was like, I didn't really feel a lot strongly about. And I was like, well, I have them. I have enough weird things just laying around that I didn't really want to do on anything that might be good, so I just threw them all onto that. But I don't know. I also was just kind of worried because while in my head, the line was just supposed to be kind of like, oh yeah, kind of like, you send monkeys into space, and it's like sending monkeys into the sky. But then I was also kind of always kind of worried that, like, I don't know, I hope it doesn't sound like it's an offensive song, like I'm making fun of people in the Air Force. Because that's not what I was doing. I was just... Also, it largely came about into my head in the first place because, like, when I play songs, I just play a thing, and then it's like, whatever the first thing is that comes to my head, I usually build off of it. And in this case, I just didn't build off of it. Because the music did the building itself. So, Air Force Chimps. No offense. And also sorry if it offended you.
Talking all the time, talking always, talking always, talking always.
Talking Through Time was another one off of The Distancer. In this one, I layered a bunch of me, singing these different lines and just repeating them, with the hope that it would come out. Basically, it's kind of just an experiment. Just I hoped it would come out as something that sounded really cool. And then it was supposed to be kind of like, methodical, like a bunch of clocks ticking, kind of like that idea, just overlapping and kind of turning into madness with too much of it ticking away like that. And the result is what you hear, or can hear if you want to hear the whole thing, or whatever. You get the idea. Pretty simple. Is it good? I'll let you decide.
King of Kong, King of Kong, King of Kong, King of Kong.
Of Ong is another song off of Other Stuff. And it was done actually on this old toy keyboard that we had. My brother and I made some music on that before, but like we just had it hanging around, so I decided to play around with it some to see if I could do some neat stuff with it. And it's very limited. It only has 2-note polyphony. I think that's how you would say that. We can only sustain 2 notes at the same time. And so I'm just playing, the drum track on it and then trying to play a thing on it and then sing. Because there's no record your stuff function on it or anything. It was like a toy thing. You had to have batteries in it. And we lost the back panel, so there's just like tape on the back, and you'd have to take the tape off, put batteries in, and then put tape back on it again. And so the batteries would kind of get loose sometimes, and you have to like kind of push on that to make the volume go correctly again. So you kind of hear partway through this song that like it gets like kind of weirdly like louder and quieter sporadically. That's because the batteries are kind of mispositioned, and sometimes you just hit it harder, sometimes it kind of pushes it back into place enough to make it sound okay again. You also hear at the end, like, shutting it off is a weird, like, electronic-y sound when you're turning it off and on, so I left that sound in. This is for the authenticity. And also, like, the song itself, like, lyrically, it was just kind of based, like, I had, like, King of Kong and Ping of Pong in my head, and so I tried to have a lot of things like Ing of Ong if I could, but obviously I broke that rule a few times in it, and so I was like, well, as long as it's of Ong, instead of calling the song Ing of Ong, you guys called it of Ong, and then I was able to do that, and it was a silly idea. Not a great song, very simple riff playing that, it's just a thing that I didn't think was that good, and that's why I ended up on that compilation of crap I never really put out, and now it's being put here on a compilation of stuff that otherwise wouldn't exist anymore, so it's better than the stuff that didn't make it. Mostly. Sort of. Sometimes. Also, I don't know if I'm in focus. I can't really tell from back here in my little viewfinder thing way over there if I'm actually even in focus or if it's auto-focusing on that and I'm not. So I'm going to say that if I come in blurry back here, that it was a stylistic choice. Because it's art. Drug Trip is the title song from that Drug Trip album I was talking about before, despite the fact that I've actually never done any drugs, other than like things that were actually prescribed to me. I haven't done any illegal drugs or psychedelics or anything, but, like this kind of tries to do that psychedelic, like, kind of feel, like the weird, like, effect on, like, the voices going on, and then, like, just the instruments I picked along with, like, the kind of, like, just kind of like a psychedelic jam happening for, like, the last half of it. So, like, the first part is kind of, like, it's kind of just sinking in, and the last part is, like, just, like, being there and, like, enjoying, like, the trip. I don't know, I just use these tones that I guess I somewhat associated with, and, like, these concepts that I associate with, being on drugs from, like, a popular culture standpoint, basically, because I've never done them, so I can't really know, and most of them I can't really do because they're not legal, nor do I know where to get them, nor do I think I could really afford them. Another quick note about the state of affairs of recording this right now. Hopefully it doesn't look really awkward. I'm using my gut as a shelf to kind of support some of the weight of this. I'm using my weight to support this weight. But for the next song, let's not wait.
He's just a little man, never was around. Take it out.
Little Man is another one off of The Distancer. And I just kind of went with it. Like most of the ones on The Distancer, I didn't really write these out. I just kind of decided I'm just going to sing and see what comes to me, and, the words, the notes, the ideas. I don't know, this isn't really based on much of anything, and it's also a little apparent that there's a couple parts where I didn't know really where I wanted to go, so there's kind of like the hesitation in my voice and the notes and whatnot. Also, the part where I'm like, who fucking cares anyway? When I'm singing that part, I just kind of like the way it was flowing, so that's why I did it multiple times. But I do think I maybe still had some tendencies of wanting to really, like you do when you're younger, you want to push the idea of, like, man, I can swear, I'm able to do, nobody told me I can't do it, and so you want to really emphasize your curse words, or profanities, and I don't know, it comes off a little bit, like, maybe it fits okay, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on it now retroactively, but it's maybe a little childish of, like, listen to what I get to say in my song. But it's short, so that's always a good sign.
There's no hope, you can't win, can't be the champion. There's no hope, you can't win, can't be the champion.
Champion ended up on the album Other Stuff, and it's one of the better ones that was on there, other than maybe some alternates to songs that I had trouble picking between the main one to use. But it's mostly just about, training, and, like, it's kind of like, inspired by, like, a Rocky kind of thing, like you're training and trying to be like a good boxer or whatever, and then kind of like the idea is that at the end you kind of just, like, you find out, like, you can't do it, you just, no matter, like, you trained all this, like, this much and everything, and you still, like, can't win, and it's hard to face that. It's kind of the idea of the song. So I think this also, like, and I'm still kind of hazy on where some of these things go too, because it's been so long since I started documenting this, but basically I believe this was probably going to be on an album, like, that we'll get to later, called, like, I think Bloodwick might have been on there or something, or 8-Man Job, somewhere in there. Sounds like it's one from around that era, so when we get to those, maybe that'll make sense to you. But it is also possible it was developed for, like, it was big in going to be on something else, but, like, whatever, I just didn't like how it kind of came out and how it was kind of bland in the mixing. mixing, the way the volume of things happened to come out, I didn't like some of it or something. So it just ultimately ended up being a thing that went there. But it does sound like something that would have just stood on a different album. So it's one of those where like I just didn't think it was good enough at the time, and that's probably a good sign that it was. I'm thinking it's this good right now. That just shows you that not everything on other stuff was a winner, but all of it ended up here. I think maybe there was some instrumental stuff that didn't make it. I don't know. Don't quote me on anything ever. But this is as close as I can get to be telling the truth. Lie detector won't have any idea if I'm being honest or not, because unless it knows more than I do, then it's me. Scripts are good. You should script things. I should script things. I should script things.
One thing where, one thing where, one thing where.
One Thing Where was another one off of Other Stuff, and you can maybe hear why. Lyrically, I'm mostly going off of things like that have where in the title, everywhere, nowhere, somewhere, kind of like playing off of those, and, changing other parts of the words. Simple stuff, something I do a lot. If you listen to a lot of me, you'll find that I'm very limited as a lyricist, among other things, musician, human, but, the instrument I'm playing is this little bell set, that was my brother's, and he just had it laying around still, and so I don't think I had the proper instruments to be playing the bell. I think I was actually using, pencils. I didn't have, the mallets for it. I think I may have just been using, pencils or something to hit them, so they sound kind of weird. And it also sounds further weird because I believe I recorded them with my laptop's, just I think I was using my laptop so I could record the audio at the time, because that's what I had there at the ready, and it was easy to do, I guess. I don't know. And also with the editing, trying to clean it up and remaster it, the audio just is kind of fucked. But, it's here. It's a thing. It exists. It, in itself, is in fact one thing where.
Get shot in the chest. Try to be the best. That's life in the West.
Life in the West is also off of Gunned Down in the West. So I figured I'd try to put it somewhere in the middle of the album here. Just kind of trying to break some stuff up and having that little feel to it, because I really liked that little short album, even though it included other things that weren't originally from it. A weird project thing, really, but Life in the West is, again, kind of generic based on watching lots of westerns and, movies and some of the shows and whatnot, and just talking about the kinds of things you'd get into, and kind of the flow of it is somewhat like you, the flow of kind of having all these different possibilities. It's, it's a new frontier, and all these things you're able to do. You're able to make your own duels, make your own rules, do what you like, do what you want. You can be good, you can be bad, you can be whatever. It's up to you. And then you kind of indulge that and go do all these things, and then you kind of end up having to pay the price, and there are consequences to all those things that you did, because everyone else gets to do what they get to do as well, and the things you do have consequences, that sort of thing. So I thought it was kind of neat. And I don't know, and if you like, generic Western themes and tropes and whatnot, there you have it. I'm glad the framing of the shot still only goes down so far, because you'd see I'm wearing very colorful shorts, which don't really go with this get-up. But, you can't see it, so, use your imagination. Maybe I have matching pants, maybe I'm just bottomless. maybe the bottom part of me is a spider.
Here it rain home again. Here it rain home.
Right Home Again came off of The Distancer, and this vocal effect from my pedal, I guess it's just an effect from the pedal that I used on my microphone, but the effect actually introduced its own harmonies automatically over whatever is being put through it. So I thought I would kind of just use that so I could still have one me sound like multiple me's singing different notes at the same time. And it kind of sounds almost like an alien kind of thing to me. Just the way the tone sounds and the way it like kind of follows it, and it's like really creepy. So I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of like an alien. I don't know what they're trying to communicate exactly. They just keep repeating the same 3 words, and I don't know, it just kind of emits that like weird spooky vibe. This whole thing kind of in general, a lot of it has been very like, a lot of The Distancer was just very like kind of like sad and like isolated and kind of creepy. I don't think that was on purpose, but that was just kind of the thing I could do with this, and I liked the sound, and so I kind of kept doing it. Because I'm a freak. Among other things. And I'm not talking about in the sheets. Hope that noise didn't pick up on the microphone. Or the cord hitting something.
This song is neat, it makes me drool. This song is sweet, it's fucking cool.
Fucking cool ended up on other stuff for a good reason. It's super short and was never really meant to be, you know, an actual full song. It was actually just for a video project I was doing. And I just kind of wanted to show at the time how I made my music. And so I was trying to show the process as best I could of these different parts. And so I wanted a quick short thing for a song to show how I record multiple parts and put together. And then you can listen to the final product in the video. And then I just kept it because I had it for that. And I figured, well, it's just laying around. Why not toss it onto an album? And then, you know, it's so short. I threw it onto here too because why not? It made for an interesting talking point at the very least. And at most, I guess that's really what it was at most, too. Unless this changed somebody's life. If you heard this, and it changed your life, then be sure to comment your lie about it doing that. And, I should plan the end of a joke before I... What do you call it? Whatever. I'd say I'd fix it in post, but you know I won't. Part of the alien was actually its own thing. Mini concept thing. It's like however long it is, right? It's longer than a normal just song should be, but it was probably shorter than an album should be, so I kind of wanted it to be this contained thing. Actually there is a song I did separately of this, which I called Adventure of the Alien, which is in the beginning, in the middle with a solo bit, and the end. And Adventure of the Alien was kind of like a overarching like alien is coming here to attack us, and there's this whole thing where it's there and doing that, and then like it's going home, and like the alien's just going back home. And the flow of part of the alien is more like, well, that it's the aliens coming there, and the aliens just like the song establishing the alien, and then some people get aboard the alien ship. I don't know if some of this is kind of ambiguous, but the way it's presented. But the idea, in my head anyway, was that I guess more like, not even so much that they just like go on the ship, but like they're kind of taken onto the ship, and then one of them on there, kind of gets like weirdly, almost like brainwashed, like something weird goes on that triggers in their head, and they're like, I want to be part of the alien, and so they like fuse with the alien. That's what all the weird noises and stuff are in there. And then there's like that regret where like they're existing inside of the alien as part of the alien, but like they want to get out. It's like awful for them. It's not what they wanted. And then again, it's kind of left ambiguous as to what happens after that with this more triumphant, almost kind of sounding song. The idea is more like they got off of the ship and then the alien went back home. You could read into it that they saved the dude and then went back home, but to person, whatever. But the way I had it in my head is that basically the other people got off of the alien ship and returned home, and the alien went back to its home, and that was kind of the end of it. So that was the big story thing for part of the alien, and I keep forgetting that this exists also because it's not like in the thing of like albums, because it's not like a playlist. It's like one song in sort of another. I had them both separately for a while too, but I figure I don't really need to save Adventure of the Alien as its own individual song when it's basically all contained within part of the alien and works with the scope of the entire thing. I like space stuff. Good Trip is also off of Drug Trip. And for this one, it's pretty self-explanatory what it's about, just having a good drug trip. And I just recorded the song, and then I put it into whatever Windows Movie Maker, and then I did the slowdown by half. And I forget which one did this, because you can do, I think one of them will slow it down and just make it slower and elongated. But this one like drops like the octave, basically. So I just thought that would sound interesting, and it sounds pretty funny, I think. But it was just a goofy idea to make into a song, but I had to make it a bit shorter so that when it got doubled, it wasn't super long. I tried to pick tones that would sound neat when they got like pushed down, if possible. But yeah, it's just kind of goofy, like the kind of going along with like the warped perception of time and things around you when you are on good drugs, which I've never had because I've never had drugs.
My sunshiny friend, my sunshiny friend, my sunshiny friend.
Sunshiny Friend is the first song off of The Distancer, and it's a happy one, which is kind of weird. And it's just about the sun being your friend. And I know, trying to be kind of a happy song, even though it's still kind of weird and creepy because it's me. I don't know. That was pretty much all there really is to it. Is sounding kind of like it's stuck with me, the name Sunshiny Friend, and like kind of going from that. There's also a little reference there to Battle Pond. It's kind of hard to make out. In fact, when I originally wrote the lyrics, I didn't catch that I did that when I was trying to, type them all up to get stuff uploaded and get everything ready. And I thought I was like in the middle of the pond, but what I actually say for that line is in Battle of the Pond, which is a reference to Battle Pond because the artwork, I believe, showed the sun in the actual artwork on the tape. So that's a weird reference to make, but I did it because I myself am a weird reference.
Remember what it meant. Remember the scent.
Remember the Scent actually first came to the album full of instrumental stuff called Beautiful Pieces, which was just a bunch of instrumental things that I tried to make mostly on piano, just things that I wanted to sound kind of pretty. And The instrumental version has more piano bits and whatnot in it. And I believe what had happened is that I still had that on my keyboard. And I thought this would be kind of a neat song. I had like some ideas for lyrics. Mostly the Remember the Scent part. Where that would go. And so I just redid some of the other tracks. There'd be like drums and bass and other things on there that would be a little easier to make a song where I'm singing on it. And the mix of it kind of made it a little bit overpowering, I guess. I think it may have actually showed up on other stuff, I think is where it ended up. I think, originally, when I was putting it out. And I don't know, it's a song alright. I like the concept, the idea of just, the certain scents, the things you smell, you're like, that reminds me of like this thing when you smell it. You just have that association with certain odors and whatnot. So it was just kind of going off of that concept, and more heavily focusing on the idea of like good nostalgic memories mostly, with the feel of the song itself. So that's Remember the Scent. It has not been featured in a deodorant commercial yet, but if you'd like it to be there, contact me.
You forgot to shoot me. Now I'm coming for you.
You Forgot to Shoot Me is the final song from Gunned Down in the West, and it's based on a similar kind of thing you'd see in a lot of westerns. It's a classic revenge plot of it's some disagreement or something about gold. Basically, the idea is that this kid sees this guy murder his family, and then he grows up and he wants to get his revenge on that dude. It's pretty basic, simple thing, but I thought the song sounded really cool, especially with the way the bells came out in it and everything, and some of the strings and stuff. And it's a classic Western type of plot. Really dig it. And I thought that also helped kind of put the bow on this, to have the first song from that album and the last song from that album here to be the first and last on this collection of stuff, since I liked that one so much. So this is essentially the conglomeration of basically those three albums, Gunned Down in the West, The Distancer, and other stuff, all into one, rather than having to have pieces here and there. So that's kind of cool, and hopefully, this has been interesting. Hopefully, this setup has looked and sounded okay. I'm going to keep going with fairly similar ideas because I'd like it to look visually similar. But we'll see what happens. I know it's still kind of all over the place. We're working on it. We're trying to fine tune it, And as an extra special treat for watching this far, I'll let you see and hear what it's been like every time on this dismount when I have to, put the mic down and then go stop stuff. Because I've had to edit this out for all those other ones, and this is what I've had to edit out. Sounds like that. For Assorted Sam, once again, MS Paint very clearly made this art. Impact font, the mainly yellow background, because I did this for these three compilation things. And the main thing is a microphone here, because these are all ones where I sang on them. That was the focus. And I made the microphone blue. And, a few dashes of white. I tried to give it some detail, but I didn't want to spend too much time to give it too much detail, but I wanted you to be able to tell it was a microphone. So, how'd I do?